Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Foers, and I'm a consultant for the Jackson Collaborative Network. We are gathering on this gloomy Monday to talk about building trust between community members and providers, joined by Sarah Williams, my esteemed colleague.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sarah Williams, and I'm also a Jackson Collaborative consultant at Jackson Collaborative Network, working with Amy in this work.
And we can just do quick introductions. We'll go through the room. If you're not dialing in from the computer that you would like to receive email, feel free to pop that in. But if you've been on before, you should be good. So we'll go through and just do introductions.
Go first. Sure. Angela Kane, Jackson Area Transportation Authority Operations Manager.
Morning, Angela.
Good morning.
And I'm Deborah Hyatt, the Rides to Wellness Mobility Navigator for the Jackson Area Transportation Authority.
Morning, Deborah. Thanks for joining. Going through with quick introductions.
I'll go next. I'm Adam Grant, and I'm the Jackson Area Recovery Community Coordinator at Home and New Vision.
Morning, Adam.
Hi, I'm Phil Toko. I'm with Michigan State University Extension.
Morning, Phil. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Did we get everybody? We should be good.
I think so.
Okay, so we have gathered several times. I know some of the folks on the call are new, so we will do a little bit of background. We won't get into too much detail. We do have a lot of our recordings on our YouTube channel, which is through our website. So if you want to catch up on a little bit more detail of kind of how they started our affinity groups and the direction we're headed, feel free to go back and view those lovely conversations. But we'll just kind of ground our work this morning with a couple of slides, so that we're all on the same page.
I have a quick question, only because some of the faces are new. I haven't met everyone. And I'm curious, Angela, you said that you're with the Jackson Area Transportation Authority, and then we also have, I haven't met Phil before, so I guess I'm just curious how you all heard about the meeting, and also welcome. But yeah, I'm curious.
I am also the over the Ride to Wellness program that Debbie is the mobility navigator over. So
Great.
So I've known about the collaborative network for a while. I used to be a lot more involved with with county affairs. And over the last 5 years, I've moved to doing a lot more statewide grant work. So and on farm food safety. And the reason building trust is important to me is because if people don't trust the institutions, they're not going to trust the information coming from said institutions. So I see this as sort of an existential threat. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what you guys do and if I can plug in and how I can help.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. It was a little, I mean, it's not off keel, but you always wonder. And also, as Amy said, we've been doing affinity groups for a few months. And so some of the introductory slides, we're not including anymore just because we've been doing the work. But I also want to make sure that we meet people where they are, and if helping you all understand a little bit about the group and the intent, would be important. It sounds like, Phil, like you're in the right spot. And also acknowledging the fact that in an ideal world, we would have a group of people that would gather together, maybe even in person, and share things with each other, and then grow that group and share the strategies we're working on together. And people in different sectors would bring their trust strategies to the table, and you would say, hey, well, I've had this challenge building trust, and Adam would say, oh my gosh, yes, me too, but this thing didn't work, or did you try reaching out to this thing? So this is really a spot where we are trying to gather people working on the same root cause. And in this group, it is building trust. It started off really between providers and consumers, but really we know it can be between providers, it can be between everyone, all levels. And so the things that we will talk about in this group today will be around the building trust piece, and how do you know, like, it's a building trust strategy. So sorry to, I'm not sorry, but I just wanted to, like, I also am curious because when we see new faces, we get excited and we're like, oh, where did they come from? How do they know us? Cool, let's make a connection. So that's great. Glad to have you all here. This is a quick group norm slide, and as we do work together, this is kind of how we this is how we will do the work together, both pausing before saying every little thing, paraphrasing, posing questions, putting ideas on the table. We want to create a space where it feels like you can just say things or you can just ask things. We had like recently we had a meeting and someone was like, they were in the group and they're like, what even is the point of being here? What is an affinity group, right? Or like, so we want to say like we hope to create a space where you feel like you can ask any question and of each other, because if Adam suggests an idea or says something, then maybe Deborah's going to say, oh, actually, I did not have good luck with that. How did you do that? And so we want to foster a space where people can ask each other questions as well. We will always ask about data, and we would like to create a space where providing data is the norm, because we want to know why people are doing things and also how you know it's successful. We assume you will pay attention to yourself and to others and presume positive intent. Anyone have any questions about those before we move forward?
Okay, so as I said, we've, and Sarah mentioned, we've kind of moved away from some of the slides of what are affinity groups, what to expect, but this is kind of the process that we're envisioning with these groups. So it kind of pulls us together so that we can be actionable around some of these root causes. The first step, and actually it's not sequential necessarily. Ideally, we would be kind of moving through this, but we can pop in wherever we're at. So the one basic thing that folks can do to kind of engage in this work is create a partner profile. And that is really just your name, organization, and the work that you're doing to around system change in our community. Then you would actually identify one of the root causes. So if you join us today around building trust, that would probably be the root cause you feel like is most important in the work that you're doing. It can also touch on multiple root causes. So you might be about building trust, and you also might acknowledge that it could be around inequitable practices or policies, or could be that navigating service systems are difficult, whatever it might be. And then we have a couple of different affinity groups. As Sarah mentioned, this one's about trust, but we have one that is around navigating service systems. And we also have one that is around inequitable practices and policies. So that's a little bit about partner profiles, and it's also a way to browse what other folks are doing in the community. So you can build it. It's a pretty simple thing. And then you can also look through and find out, wow, I didn't realize that there were 8 people that were working around this particular thing in our community, and you can make connections through that partner profile page. And then obviously engaging in the affinity group discussions. We've had some fantastic, rich discussions around trust, around what that means, around barriers that people are encountering, even around things that people are hearing in the community about trust and about organizations. So we've had great conversations, and great connections have been made doing that in these affinity groups. People have built off each other's experiences and interactions. So ideally, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this today, is action planning. We really want to move from just discussion around these important issues to really formalizing an action plan. And as I mentioned, we'll get through that a little bit later, but it's really writing the problem down and building strategies to address that. And then, of course, creating an action plan and not kind of attending to it doesn't always end with great progress. So we want to make sure that folks are tracking and reporting progress. It also is an opportunity to really celebrate those successes. Sometimes we have built an action plan and it has gone different directions, and we've instituted strategies, and a small, sometimes unintended or outcome will come. And so we want to bring those back to the group, and we want to share those successes and barriers. If we've gone off on one direction with a strategy and hit a roadblock, bring it back, because we can all learn from each other. And so that's kind of the general idea of what we're hoping to achieve with these affinity groups. We've had a lot of great participation and encourage now moving more toward action. So these are just some of the things that we've talked about in the past. We've had like different individuals show up at different groups. So you may not recognize all the folks on this, but really it's just kind of recapping at the different meetings that we have, what folks are struggling with or what they're seeing in our community. So you can take a quick peek, but some of it was really around, some folks had created a video around authentically engaging folks in our communities so that they feel respected and that they feel heard and that we're helping them in ways that is meaningful for them. We've had individuals that talk about scheduling meetings. Relationships is a big key thing that we've seen as a theme throughout all of these is folks will trust you once they have relationships with you. We've had and talked about that with credibility. If they know you and they trust you, that's individualistic, but we need to work toward making sure our organizations are trusted, not just individuals. Let's see, closing the loop on feedback. So these are some of the many things we've talked to up to this point. Here is slide 2 around that. Again, we go back to relationships. Adam talked about showing up to events, meeting people where they're at, getting out into the community, not just sitting behind a desk and waiting for folks to reach out to you. We know that a lot of organizations can be intimidating, or services can feel overwhelming and folks don't know where to start, but if they see a familiar face, they're more likely to engage in those services. Employee turnover is a struggle because they get to know Adam, and then all of a sudden, if Adam moves to organizations, that can hurt trust in the organization. We talked about lack of diverse candidates for employee roles. Folks, we know that often folks will build trusting relationships with folks that they know or that seem similar to them. And we know that in the majority of organizations, we do not have diversity with their service systems. Let's see, getting out into community, willing to show up, make mistakes, have difficult conversations. We know that in the past, we've talked about that. It's okay to make mistakes, but address those mistakes. That's kind of what we do the group norms in the beginning. Like, we are not going to get it right the first time, and that's okay. We need to acknowledge that, be humble. This work takes tons of humility when we're doing it, because we've talked about before, we all want to be our own organization's cheerleaders, but if we think there's nothing wrong in our organization or in the way we're presenting services, we're not going to be as inclined to fix those things. And our last one is really just, again, a continuation of the things that we've talked about. We talked about connections, right? So we had a couple of connections in the past where we talked about trust, and we talked about perceptions and mindsets around different things in our community, and we were able to have a connection between 2 of our affinity groups where they took it that next step and held meetings and broke down those barriers. And that's fantastic. That is really one of the outcomes we're looking at from these affinity groups. And so not even just moving to action plan and making connections, but then individuals taking that and taking that next step so that things things change in our community. Sarah, do you want to pop in on anything that I've talked about?
No, I think these are all great. I think, and I'm like, if I'm viewing it from maybe like Phil or Angela's perspective, I might feel like a lot of information, or it's really just to show that we've been doing the work and having discussions for a few months about like, what are you doing in the community? And then we have on this slide, like under building relationships, right? Like a success from one of our times together where like we had people connect with each other and actually work to address the issue of trust in the community and like what strategy was done. And then now we're working on how to document that all, right? Because like, it's so great to gather all together and to talk about, and really I'll probably like call Adam out at some point today and say like, how are things going? How are your strategies going? Because I'm curious and I want to know. And also we want to make it tangible and like put it in an action plan and say like, and so then whether or not Adam is at the meeting, whether or not anyone is, we can track what's happening, and also we can help support, because I'll use Adam as an example because we know Adam. I'll just say that. But like he came off mute. I was ready for him to push back. No, but like, say for example, if Adam's like, I've been doing focus groups and this is the barrier I have, is that people aren't coming in, or we have the wrong people. Maybe people are coming in, but they're actually not representative of the community. Like, what can we do about that? And I might not be the expert in that, and Amy might not be the expert, but maybe someone else here is, or maybe we can lift up the problem and say, oh, that's so interesting. Do you know about Residents in Action Group? Do you know what that they're doing? And then maybe Deborah's like, actually, there's this other group called Love Inc. and they're actually doing similar work. And so there's a point where we're hoping to like write that down, talk about barriers, and then the next time maybe Adam pops in and says, actually, I did contact them. We have 3 people. Here's our measure of success. Or I did contact them. Actually, I ran into a huge barrier and now I need this thing. So it's mine and Amy's role really just to facilitate that process and to be like a support. So just to kind of ground it, I know we're in a weird balance of always welcoming the new people and also moving along with the people who have been coming. So hopefully that helps a little bit. We're happy to also pause, etc. But maybe that could be a good starting point. Amy, I know our next slide is like, what are you doing? I did clear the Padlet out. We can or cannot share it. I don't have strong feelings about it, but I can also take notes as I usually do. But I'd love to hear, and maybe Phil could share maybe some thoughts. I know he already did a little bit. And then I'd love to hear maybe some strategies that I know Angela is here specifically around trust. So maybe she has some things to share about trust. So what do you think?
I can talk a little bit about some of the things I'm working on currently. So I'm involved with a group called the North Central Regional Food Safety Center. And one of the issues that we have is we reach most people that are sort of the loudest voices, who may potentially provide the most food. So I work with fresh produce growers and I work on educating and providing services to fresh produce growers. And most of the people that we reach are large producers, but we don't reach folks either, whether it's BIPOC growers, whether it's indigenous growers, folks that still need the education around produce safety, but don't necessarily trust us to be the source for information. So recently I put together a group, and it was interesting that Adam said that when he put together his focus group, that the empathetic interviews seem to be better. I put together a focus group with a number of folks that are generally underrepresented, and I built it as a stakeholder group. But it was there were no large scale stakeholders at the table. It was folks. I had an urban market gardener service provider that was at the table. I had a person who works with Latino growers at the table. And then I had invited a number of folks from the indigenous communities to be a part of it. And they wouldn't even respond. The indigenous folks wouldn't even respond. The other folks were good to engage. But I actually had to call and have a really a conversation one-on-one over Zoom, where we basically could see each other's face, like a conversation, to get the kind of feedback that I needed from them and for them to engage me. And I realized just how important being able to see someone's face and to talk to someone like this is in terms of being authentic. But I definitely, one of the key things is, if they're going to trust me with the information, I need to make sure I take it to heart in ways that they can see and tangibly understand. Because if they don't see the impact of what they're saying, they're not going to give me feedback in the future.
I don't know if we're at that point yet, but I would also make note that a lot of times, especially when you're talking about the indigenous, people of this country, there's a elder factor that comes in. So you can do all the you can do all the promo that you can in other directions, but if you're not bringing SEMA, if you're not bringing tobacco to the elders and talking to them first, so that they're talking to the other people, you won't really be trusted. So that's another place that just showing up, kind of helps a lot. So
True that.
That's so, I love that point, Adam, because as you were talking, Phil, we've had similar issues in our community of engaging partners that we would like to. And in a Zoom world, in a virtual world, it's a little bit challenging to build relationships. And also, I'm like a middle-class white woman. And so my relationships with many people who are closest to the problem, or like, I'm certainly a factor in building trust, right? And so to Adam's point around like, are we even engaging the right people or doing it the right way? Because to me, a lot of times we're trying to, right now in the network, we're trying to gather people around different things. And one of our things is we're trying to engage a lot of like grassroots Black-led organizations doing work close to the ground. And I know that I probably am not emailing the right people, but I'm hoping that those people will then email people who can reach out and can like do this. So there's a piece too of like time always helps, but also like we've talked before about, I've been having like community champions. That might not be the right language to use, but when Adam's talking about like engaging different populations and communities, and I would not have known that bringing tobacco to an elder, right, would be a thing, but like having a champion or having someone be a liaison, or I don't know. I think that's so interesting, and just also goes to show the parts of the importance of trust before doing any of it. Like, we're trying to do really big work at the network too, and I mean, I don't think it's a secret that we also are working on trust, and that takes time and transparency and a lot of things that are often not on our side.
Hi. It's my first time here today, so I was just here just listening and learning and seeing what it was all about. So that's just where I'm at today. And I understand that trusting and building a relationship with the community and letting people know that we are available out here. A lot of people don't realize exactly what Jackson Transit does, or even what Ride to Wellness do. And some people are like, what is Jackson Area Transportation Authority? If some people never had a use for it, then we try to explain to them that maybe someone else in your family may have use for it. So that's just where I'm at right now. But Debbie may have something she want to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. All right. So, does anyone else have anything they wanted to share about what's going on in the organization around building trust? Or Phil, did you feel like you needed more support around some of the things that you're doing?
No, I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as Angela. You asked me point blank what I was working on.
No, I love
That's
it.
why I answered it, but
Excellent.
I'm really here more to listen than anything.
Okay, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think already what you had to offer, Phil, is great. And there are no expectations, only that, we're all here with the intent to work on strategies around how to improve trust wherever we are working. I'm curious, Adam, I don't usually call people out, but I have like 3 exceptions, and Adam is one. So I am wondering too, because you have shared in the past a little bit about some of the things you're working on. Like if you wanted to offer an update or maybe even lead the group. I mean, you're our longest standing trust person that's in the group today. So here's your gold star. I'll put it right now. Gold star. I'm just kidding.
Goodness.
There are no gold stars, but like maybe you could offer like an update or what you're working on trust, and maybe challenges or successes.
there really hasn't been anything more that's been really conscious, because I've been working, with Nation Outside too, which gets me out into the community. We did an event at Chalet Terrace this last Saturday. And we had Bob Bills hooking up barbecue, and we had a raffle and things like that. And we're just giving information. We had the opportunity for people to get vaccinated, and we were supposed to have testing, but we didn't. But we had those things, all those things on site. But the big thing is it wasn't, my philosophy on things. You put the things out there, people can take what they want to, but for the most part, you just want to connect with them. We are finding some challenges at the house right now, the main office, because the COVID uptick, and it's changed things, and we're dealing with people with, co-occurring conditions and other trust issues, not necessarily trusting, the medical field. And so now the medical field is kind of infringing on all our lives. So you're taking people's temperatures and you're asking them questions, and they feel like they're being tracked and things. So some people are disengaging from services because enough trust has not been established. But I also feel better because there were a few people who had disengaged once before who didn't this time around. They're wearing their masks and they're letting us take their temperature. And so I think it's just proof that if you just keep showing up, and I keep going back to this statement, but I think it's absolutely true that, nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And so that takes time. That takes consistency, because people are watching not only what you say, but what you do. And if your feet match your mouth after a while, people will start, to trust you. And I'm starting to believe this, because we've talked about the idea of people going from one agency to another and losing trust in the agency. I think partially we're responsible for that, because when we go from one agency to the other, people say things on social media that get blown out of proportion, and people think that they were either pushed out or couldn't stand something about the last job, and people latch on to that stuff. If you're looking for some reason not to trust, there's all kinds of fodder out there to do it. So I think we need to be more aware of what we do. And if we do go to another position, express what good things the last one does, because they do still provide a service, to our community.
That sounds like a very specific thing that has happened, unless you're not referencing like a recent specific thing. Is there like or maybe you can't speak about it. Is there like on Facebook, you mean, like people just trashing the previous places?
Not a specific thing,
Okay.
but a generalized thing. It's not uncommon. We've all kind of seen it, even if it's not direct. We've seen the insinuation. I mean, sometimes people just move on because it's a better opportunity, or they needed a break. I mean, I'm gonna be honest and pretty frank here right now that I'm being sought for some positions that I have to consider, partially because the position that I'm in, we're not listed as such, but we're essentially a crisis center. And we are dealing with people in the community that have been kicked out of the shelters. They're DNA'd, they're leaving places against medical advice. They have nothing left. They've been trespassed from most places in the city of Jackson. And we're a place that they can actually come and get a cup of coffee and get loved on a little bit. And that is heavy. And especially since half of our staff, have caught COVID too. And so we've been short staffed, and, so sometimes, when people, I had the advantage of this, you guys that have been here for a minute know my story. I did a lot of time in prison, so I didn't have to worry about the social media stuff. I came out and was able to consciously approach this and decide which things that I talk about. A lot of people have come up in the social media and that's how they process everything, but they process it for the whole world to see and forget that everybody else gets to interpret it the way they want to, because it's almost like reading a book where you don't get the context of the author. So I just think that, especially in our professional capacity, we hold a higher level of responsibility to the people we're working with, even when we stop working directly with them. So.
Good insight.
I love that. Well, and really it speaks to a less individualistic, when I feel very confident in saying that we tend to be that in society. In like, there are people who we are community people, right? But like, we are in an individualistic society. And I feel like what you're talking about, Adam, is really like caring about the well-being of the group, of everyone, more so than defending an act, like my action, or defending why I went somewhere or why I didn't, right? Because to me, I don't know, maybe that's what I gathered from what you were saying.
No, I agree. More of a collectivist approach instead of just an individualist approach. And that goes to what Phil was talking about too, because that's one of the things that's often lost in the Native communities is the idea that the collective is more important than the individual. And, you know, that's huge. It takes time to do those things. And like you said, most people wouldn't have thought about the idea of bringing tobacco, but that's how you approach anyone, you know, in the community. The other thing too is like, and I know it's a little bit of an aside, but it's important because in the same regard, they're liable to come to you with a gift. And if MSU Extension tells you you can't accept gifts, then that's a problem, because then you have to define what gifts are, because it is disrespectful to not accept a gift, you know, from someone of Native heritage. You know, you can give a gift back in return so that there's no obligatory thing going on like that. But all those things are relevant, you know, and I think that's the beauty of what we're doing here that I appreciate is a lot of times we're spitballing, and I appreciate Sarah and Amy because I'm really good at just, you know, I should be on a think tank is what I think, but don't make me write anything down and don't make me do any reports. So as we're doing this, they're doing this and they're following along, and I look at it on the board and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. That makes a lot of sense. And I missed that part. So I appreciate the fact that it's exactly that, is a collaboration and an opportunity for us to come together. And finally, I'm glad to see new people, but I'm also sad to see we still have as few people as we should, because we know there's a huge trust factor that's going on with services out here in the community. And as far as I'm concerned, this is one that we should have at least one person from every single agency in the area, because I don't know any agency in the area that's got full and complete trust of the community.
Well, Adam, with that statement, you are now our official sponsor. You're our cheerleader. You're the champion. You will have a gold star. It'll actually look like a badge. I'm just going to put it right on there.
No gold stars, but we will make maple syrup decals.
I knew you were going to do that. That's a callback to one of our first affinity groups. Not mad about it. But I agree. And I love that conversation and how it also piggybacked off of Phil's too, because there's this piece around checking our own selves and also the things we are working on in the community. And like, I know that my job is like this, and these are my requirements, but also and that's the point of the collective impact work. And that's the point of us doing the work together, is because we think together we can do it better. And I'm going to check a little bit of my ego and my whatever, because I know Adam is actually better at this thing. So like, hey, let's tag team this. Adam, you grab that. And that is the intent. And I know what you're saying, Adam. We've also had different, how should I say, initiatives pop up in the network around one of our other affinity groups. Like a funding opportunity came up. And so a lot of our effort and energy and other people also have been, has been targeted towards this really short timeline funding opportunity. So, and also been, and there's another uptick, right, in COVID in Jackson and in other areas. And so it feels again like, should we even, because I would love to like meet and have coffee and we would love to do all these things. And it feels like there are barriers. I'm just saying facts out loud, but I love what you said.
I love what you said too. Just saying.
Awesome. All right. Does anyone else want to kind of, before we move on, because we are going to try to document a little bit more. We might be, we might be transcribing for Adam since he doesn't like to do the reporting, or whomever else would like to actually populate things. But we're going to walk through an action plan today, just so folks can know the type of things that we're moving toward or trying to move toward. But before we get there, I just want to kind of leave this open space if folks just want to have a trust issue or a thought that they want to capture before we kind of move into, and we certainly, this is, as you know, informal. So as we move through and things pop in your head, jump on, unmute, like let's sit with things or mull through things. Okay, hearing none, I will be open to be interrupted as we move along. So this is a little bit of our action planning process. This is how we go about addressing some of the things that you guys are struggling with or trying to make better in your organizations. This is cyclical. You can jump in at any point of here. You can you might be moving through and backpedal because things aren't moving as you had anticipated. Excuse me. Sorry. Okay. But if you notice in this process, engagement is at the center of all of it. So that is kind of critical, especially as we're talking about trust in our community, because without having those relationships, without hearing from people who are most closest to the problem or most affected by the disparities or the things that we're seeing, without hearing from them, hearing from their experiencing, trusting those experiences, whether or not you have seen it or not, trusting folks with their experiences, listening to them and having them be part of building the solutions is critical to all the work that we do. So if in all of the work that Sarah and I do, if we meet with you, if we're working with through action plannings, that's always going to be the question that we ask you. Who have you talked to? How do you know? Have you heard enough about people's stories with lived experiences? And if not, we're going to push you to go back and to kind of really figure that out more. We've worked so often in a community that sits around tables and decides what others need, and that's not the way we're moving forward in the work that we're doing. And at each step of the way, it's always about understanding that those are experiencing the problems are creating the solutions because folks know what they need. So yeah, so this is a little bit about it. We really pushed you to disaggregate the data. So if you say we've got 32% of people that don't trust us, who are those people? You know, are they young? Are they old? Are they Black? Are they white? Are they, do they live in the city? Do they live in rural areas? What, you know, who, like push it down so that you can really target your strategies to that particular population, understanding those root causes. So it kind of goes around and then it gets into measures and building the strategies. So any other thoughts on this, Sarah, before we move through? Because this is just kind of the general process. The action plan builds off of this, but
Yeah, no, I think that's I think you explained it well, and I'm trying to like look at it from people who might be new today. This is a framework that we use to help support you all too, and we've already really been using this framework today in the conversation without pointing to each bubble, right? So like, as Phil is talking about trying to reach out and why certain people won't respond, right? Like without even realizing it, like to me, he talked about authentic engagement and actually going to the people closest to the problem and saying, hey, why not? Why aren't you listening or responding, right? And so there are pieces that we will not know root causes until we ask. And this is the action planning process. And I feel like sometimes a lot of the words that we might use or the network uses might feel jargony or confusing or whatever, but really this is we love the process of like asking and being thought partners with you in helping figure out why things are happening and then what we can do together about them. And then like Amy said, we've been talking for a few months about different things and what people are doing. And really the goal that we're trying to get to is in order to show that we're all doing this work together and that it's going to move the needle in these big, meaningful ways, we have to document it and we have to track it. So that is where we come in and we can help. I LOL'd because Adam was like, I don't document or do anything. And I was like, little does he know that today we're gonna
Push people to actually write it down.
yeah, because that's part of it too. And Amy and I are experts at very few things, but one of them is helping people put things into action plans and also listening and meeting people where they are. We're very good at that.
I document, I don't like it.
Listen, I'm writing that in notes. Adam is protesting. It's fine. I am not afraid. I'm not afraid of a little protest. I'm not afraid that you don't like it.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can screen share and just kind of show you through the website how you would go about action planning, and we can kind of play around with one. It won't be published, so it'll be behind the scenes, but it'll give us an idea of the type of questions and the type of things that we're trying to achieve in our action planning. We'll see if I'm able to do this. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I went back to that. Oh, this technology.
Do you need help?
Yeah, here we go. I think this might do it. Okay. Are we there where we want to be?
Yeah, I was actually going to put that link in the chat too.
Yes, actually, that would be great. So Sarah put the link in the chat. That link is to action planning. So it really starts out at our website, Jackson Collaborative Network website. Is this shifting as I'm shifting screen, Sarah? I just want to make sure.
Yes,
Okay.
I am seeing you move screen to screen. Yep.
Okay, so you would kind of come up here to partner resources and then down to action planning. This is actually where we talked about the partner profiles too. That's where you can enter your profile, which is that quick update of your name, organizations, and what you're doing in the community around system change.
Oh,
Why don't
I
you-
went to do that for us and it said we had to have a special invite. So it should have.
Will you, Amy, I was actually going to say, will you go to partner profile? Because I think it would be cool to show Phil and probably Angela and Deborah what that public looks like. You have to go to the system change. I'm not sure why it's named that. But.
Okay, so this is the partner profiles. Here is where you view profiles. So this is a little bit about what folks are doing in the community. It just starts with your name and your agency, and then the root causes. So there's 14 root causes that we're working on in our network. We have affinity groups currently around 3 of them. And then there's a little bit about the system change work that's going on. So Deborah, we can work with you offline to try to create that profile, as well as any assistance with action planning.
So it's got my name and contact information, but when I went into, well, we can figure it out later, but
Well,
it was,
if you go back to the website, Amy, if you try to go to, just see what it does. Is that where you went from, Deborah?
so it was not, it was where, so the screen she was just at, it said sign in.
Oh.
And Ryan and I were trying to do it
Yeah,
that way and it.
Yes, you will not have a sign in. So if you go to our main website, which I can
Okay.
send you, or have it, if you go to the
Yeah, we're
partner
already
profile,
on that part, like Ryan and I are both in that. With
you
our
have an
contact.
action plan, yes. And actually a partner profile is a little bit different. So
Okay.
the partner profile is you're I think at the same place there.
Yeah, because
Okay.
did you not want to be a partner profiles?
Oh no, I wanted to show them how to add. So
Add the partner profile. Oh, I've got it. Okay, so you'd start going to partner resources, and then what? Partner profiles.
So this is, and I know it's confusing. So Deborah, you created an action plan. And so that actually talks about strategies and it's like what you're doing. And actually that's like the 201, and the partner profile is really a 1 to 2 sentence about the work you're doing in the community, and it's per person. So you would not put Ryan and I are doing this. You would have your own, and Angela would have her own, and Ryan would have his own.
Gotcha.
Just I know, and it's a little bit confusing, especially if you're like, I did this, I spent a lot of time. This is actually in the view that Amy just showed, it really allows people to have a quick overview of what people are doing in the community. So I should be able to look on there and see that you're doing a thing with JADA, so is Angela, so is Ryan, but the work you're actually doing and actually the root causes you're working on might be different. Like you might be working on service systems being easier to navigate, and maybe Angela's working on trust, and maybe Ryan is working on inequitable policies. Like it could be different, and frankly should be probably with different employees, but you'll see each of our, this is our public facing screen. And we just found out yesterday that anyone can view this. So you can go in and you can be like, oh, I didn't know that Jessica from Lifeways was working on a health and wellness promotion. I'm actually doing that too. And I would really like to connect. You can connect. We would never even know because the email is public. And so we're trying to do our best to get a lot of people, as many people as possible in the community to enter. So that way, and then also we know we have like, wow, we have 23 people working on community members lack social supports. Maybe we should gather around that, right? So this gives us data on what people are working on and how we can best offer support. So we'll make sure to send a separate link after this meeting so that it's super clear on on what to enter. And if you're confused, we also are happy to get on calls. We've walked a lot of people through too. I hope that helps a little bit. I think Adam's got one in.
Yeah, I just,
Look at right there.
there.
It's beautiful. If I had a maple syrup icon, I'd put it right there. I really would.
Or Gold Star. I'll take one of those.
But yeah, you can see it's just like a couple sentences. It's not like you don't have to
Not
write
formal,
a novel.
it doesn't have to be all
Yes,
correct.
exactly.
We will
And
help
so-
spell check.
Yeah, so I can click on there and I can see quickly what Adam is doing. And if his job changes or his role changes, you can go in and enter a new one and send me an email that says, hey, can you delete my other one? Like this is it's pretty informal, and we're not going through and making sure that, like, I don't know if Steve Castle is actually meeting the critical and basic needs. Like this is all self-entering. So everyone is responsible for their own entry. Any other questions on this? I think this is, it has been helpful, and for us and for other people have said so as well. So we just have to more education and letting people know about it.
Okay. So hearing none, we are going to bump back to our website and look at action planning. Because this is really that next step where you're individually addressing the issues that or the barriers that you're finding. So you would move down under partner resources to action planning. And I just want to walk through one of the action plans so that you can see the types of questions that you'll be looking to address. And again, so none of these are published until we've kind of taken a look, and we might invite you to dig a little deeper or broaden the scope, or we don't want to obviously correct anything that's happening, but sometimes people will make a statement that is that has assumptions in it. And so we will like kind of encourage you to backpedal and kind of look at it without making assumptions. So people say, well, folks aren't using our organization because they don't trust us. And we're like, well, do you know that that's actually a fact? So backpedal it and keep it simplified to say folks aren't using our organization. So let's see. Able to look through this. So you would enter your name and you would enter like the organization, whether it's individual or organizational. Typically, if you're in charge of this particular strategy or this particular work, it would be individual. Sometimes folks have done one on behalf of their organization because that will allow them to have multiple people doing multiple strategies. But to begin with, you might consider individual. And then this is where you're looking at which one of our aims. It might be about resiliency, it might be about safety, it might be about health. But you would choose, some of them are, would be about basic needs are met. So you might choose that. And then this is just your plan name. So this would just be like saying, it might be working with transportation in our community for wellness, or it might be, but that would just be like, you could even put JADA there, or you could put Home with New Vision, or whatever it might be. Simple, easy. And then this is where you would state your problem that you've identified. And again, this is where you would say, working to connect community members with services around SUID or something like that. Who's most impacted? This is where we push you to disaggregate that. So if you know that there are Black and brown folks in the community that are not receiving your services, or if you know that there's an elderly population, we really would push you to dig deeper into that data to kind of go through it. And then what data have you used? This is where we're gonna, again, say it, we don't want to sit around a table and anecdotally decide what our community needs. We really want to make sure that we're hearing from people, we're building those relationships. And sometimes it might be anecdotal. And you might go out into a community and say, well, I have had 3 people that have told me that they don't trust my organization because of A, B, and C. So that kind of would move through it. So I'm going to just put in some fake ones here. So this is say, so at this point, you do not want to, this is where some people get stuck. You do not want to quite save it yet. You'll add your strategy. This is where you can save it when the purple bar comes up. And so you're going to save that strategy after you fill in a type. Okay, so add strategy, save. And then this is just the second page. So it's a pretty simple action planning thing. And this is where Sarah and I can walk you through it, and we can help update it, and we can help you build stronger strategies. So this is saying, what do you actually plan on doing here? So I am going to reach out to 3 organizations or 3 community members who have used our services in the past and have had good experiences. Or I'm reaching out to 10 10 folks in our community who have not returned for services to do empathic interviews. So it's like you're doing the work already. This just helps us better understand what's going on around this in the community. And it helps us to kind of hone in on strategy work. Any questions up to this point? I know I'm doing most of the talking, and that's typically not what I like to do in these affinity groups. Thoughts, questions, ideas? Okay. Again,
And these are all things too that you don't have to have flushed out like every field when you're thinking of a thing. A lot of times we'll think about like, what action do you or your agency commit to take to address the problem? And there might be something that you actually think that should be happening that maybe your agency isn't on board with, or maybe you're working to get your agency buy-in, or maybe ideally action plans are something that you can control, right? Like I have an idea that I want to like change the world, but I might not have that power. So like your action plan should be something that you can control. So like I know that I can schedule a meeting with Amy to ask her about this policy to see if blah, 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 right? So like, these are things that I know I can do, and I'll know that I did it by measuring this thing. Well, I know that I met with Amy because on Tuesday at this time we met and this is what we talked about. So it really is, these are also, and this is changeable too. We're not looking for like, well, I want to change federal policy by next week, right? Like these are small, tangible things that, and we can add strategies later too. Maybe like you're like, oh, actually that went really well, and I have a new idea and a new strategy. And so it's not, it really shouldn't be a one and done. There's a strategy, and like, oh, I did this thing, or actually like I was actually in the wrong direction. I thought I was going to go this way, and like I had to pivot. So I have a new strategy in place. Like,
yeah, you would go down and you'd submit this one, but you would go back and hopefully build. So once you've accomplished the strategy, that should lead to a next step that you can actually, once you've built trust with these 3 community members and you've had empathic interviews with them, then there's a next step. Like then they might help you inform the next strategy. Like they might say, so you've met with them, you've built a relationship with them, and then they might inform your next strategy. They might say, here's what your organization needs to do. You actually really need to think about changing the way you're delivering services because your location is off of the bus route, or whatever they might, tell you. So that would be inputted there. this is those 14 root causes that we keep talking about. These are the things that, the barriers that our community members are encountering. It's about, they don't have skills or assets, they don't trust organizations, systems are difficult to navigate, they don't know about systems. So these are the 14 things that our community said were the biggest barriers. You would select one of them, and then you'd say, all right, I'm going to start today, and by the this time next month, I'm going to have met with 6 community members to hear their voices about whatever they're doing. So then you would select your end date. Here's some, how would you be successful? What would be different? So you would hear authentically from community members about the organization and the issues that they have with trust. I mean, or community members would be more trusting and wouldn't, engage with your services, or I would have authentic input from folks around sustainable farming or whatever it might be that you're addressing. This is that vision kind of piece. And it allows you to know what will make you successful. Measuring, we're always going to say, you can't just anecdotally say, oh, yeah, we're doing well. So this is pushing to measurements. We know that, if we have an increase of 10 community members using our services by this, that, that's how you'll, be able to measure it. Assets or resources, that might be specific. You might find that you need to partner with this organization, or you might, this is what you'll leverage. So you might say, well, I really need to reach out to this group because I know that they have got great insight, or they've done this well, or I know that I can use my relationship with so-and-so to bring 3 people into the room, or and then tools or supports that you actually need. That might be funding, that might be your CEO's approval, that might be government, permit for certain things. I don't know. Obviously, I'm kind of moving through it, but so that's pretty much it. That's action planning. And then Sarah and I will step in and make sure that we feel like it's, they're great action plans, and we're not there to judge them, but that you've got the things that you need to make you successful in your organization. You would submit that strategy. Once you fill it in with some big things, and then it would bump in. So then Sarah and I would get a notification that you built one, and we would move through to it. So here are some action plans that are already built in, so that you can, again, that's the same thing. You can peruse those. Any thoughts, questions, issues, difficulties?
I put it in the chat. Angela, would you mind entering your current email address into the chat just to make sure that we can follow up correctly? Because I want to make sure I'm covering all my logistic bases. Thank you.
So there's really not too many or too less of strategies, obviously. But what
Yeah.
happens if you have all these strategies listed and you choose not to use certain ones? Do they get removed? Do you take them out?
Well, ideally, you would be updating them as you move along. So you would, because there's a way to submit an update, and then Sarah and I would be, we could like say that one is no longer active, right? Or this is strategy number 3, and we've really made great progress. We would be able to update that in your action plan so that you can kind of keep noting those things along the way.
I mean, because you guys definitely know that we've submitted an action plan, we've submitted an update just to kind of clean it up. So our next step that we're taking is doing the strategies, and we're gonna get some of those going. But between Ryan and myself, we've already got like 10 ideas
That's awesome.
that have
Yeah.
to come, we have to get with Angie and Mike and the other steps of it before we can submit them. But I'm like, okay, if this works, but this didn't, and we put it there, are we stuck with that strategy?
No, we would be able to move that through depending on, if you were like, okay, we attempted this and we found like this one was better, we could make those adjustments on your action plan for sure.
Okay.
And you're talking specifically to Deborah, like and really in an ideal world, every community partner would have an action plan with different strategies. So if, say, for example, I'm working on building trust in the community, my problem statement is that only middle-class white women are coming to my program, or I have no people of color coming to my program. And I'm like, well, I need to find out why that's happening. So my strategy might be, I'm going to host a coffee hour and invite people to come. Another strategy might be, I'm actually going to go knock on doors and ask. And another strategy might be, well, I heard from a friend that this program might be a good idea. So I'm going to set up a meeting. I'm going to ask. So really, if you are doing good work, there are probably a lot of strategies that you should think about, and they probably all won't. I mean, really, there's no failure, right? It's just data. So like if I had something that failed, it's just showing me that like, oh, that wasn't an outcome, or that wasn't the path, or I should reach out differently. And so when you're talking specifically about your action plan and your strategies, you are also aligning that with our other affinity group, which is our inequitable policies and procedures. We have a funding opportunity if we can get the right people at the table.
Hey,
And
I've gotten
so-
some people, so.
Oh, awesome.
Excellent.
That's great. So we have an idea in an ideal world situation in a very short amount of time limitations. We're doing our best. But yeah, when you're talking about strategies, and there are no, like, you could also say, oh, just so you know, like, I put in 5 strategies, and so then I would, whether or not you have funding attached or not, I would say, hey, Deborah, on this strategy, it said, like, how are you doing? Like, do you need like support in this way? Like, it says here that you're going to reach out to, this way. How did that go for you? Right? Like, our
And
goal
that's
is
kind
just
of what
checking
Ryan and
in.
I are at too, is like, even if we don't get any funding, or it doesn't get approved by council and it ends up going back to wherever it came from, at least it's there and people maybe want to help
Yeah.
outside of that funding.
Well, and it just helps you think and dig deeper. So yeah, it would be available for other funded opportunities, or just kind of to keep. We've had a couple of partners that are like, I have been wanting to do like diversify the people that are using my program, and I'm getting through day-to-day stuff. We know that everyone is tasked with so much more these days, and it's super hard. And they're like, but this is an important thing, right? I don't have women of color using my program. And so then we'll be like, okay, well, then let's build an action plan, and we can be accountability partners, right? And so like these are the things you said you're going to do. I'll check back in. I'll nag you if you want me to. I won't if you don't. But it just kind of helps in building momentum around that, where you've got that person behind you going, okay, you said you were going to do this and you wanted to do these 3 things. It just, I mean, it's helpful in the community. So
I can tell you, we have talked and talked and talked again this week about what and where and ideas, and just trying to figure out where we're going to move to next as far as it goes. But it gave us a place to start from.
awesome. Good.
It's
Yeah, that was
great.
useful.
And frankly, like, that's kind of the point too, right? Because we're all at different places in work, in our understanding, in the community, and whatever. And
whatever your
ideally-
life has brought to you, life experiences are going to bring
A
some
million
perspective.
%. We've talked about that so many times too. And Adam is so transparent too about like, here's my life. This is what I have brought to the table. And ideally in these groups, we get to know each other and trust each other and build relationships. So then also our relationships between each other, right? You guys start to trust us. We start to trust you. And then when I say like, hey, if you could just strengthen this strategy, it would better your efforts. Or you could be like, hey, can you tell me what the heck is going on? And I can say, yes, I can. Or like, no, I actually know nothing. Right. And you would believe me. So like the whole point of all of this is to build trust so that then we can move. Because I was going to swear again. We can't get anything done unless we don't trust each other. Adam, you're on mute. Feel free to swear. Just kidding.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. And I think being able to share these strategies helps quite a bit too, because like sometimes if you just look at this stuff on paper and you don't have everybody to discuss it and get context, you can look at something and be like, that doesn't work. And I'll give you an example with something I recently did. We did canvassing. We were going door to door before we did these community fairs. It didn't work so well with me showing up at a lot of these neighborhoods with a clipboard in my hand, knocking on the door, because like one of my co-workers who was canvassing said, I look like a narc. I'd like to say that I look like the po-po, but that's a little bit different. But you could look at that and you could be like, well, this isn't going to work. It doesn't necessarily work in that way, because when I showed up for the community fairs and people got a chance to engage me, there wasn't a door between the two of us. There were a lot of connections made. There were relationships made. And from some of those circumstances, even though I'm doing one thing for Nation Outside, they also know that I work at Home of New Vision. And there have been at least 2 people from just these direct engagements who had never come to Home of New Vision before, who came in specifically asking for Adam. So you know, that's what I love about this is that we're not only doing the work, and I do write some things down. I do have them in, but we also get a chance to, you know, chop it up and figure out why it didn't work, what context it didn't work in. The strategy may be solid. It just might not have been in the right environment. It might not have been, this is
Right
COVID.
person, yeah.
This is COVID. We can't even tell
That's
some
right.
of the stuff if it's going to work or not. We just know it didn't work in all these contexts.
That's right.
So,
And to that point, Adam, like you were even saying earlier, like I could say, I tried to do this work with the Indigenous community and I just can't believe I was shut out. And you'll be like, well, did you consider the respect? Did you consider bringing tobacco? And I'll be like, what? So there is power in bringing us together if I also am humble enough to say, shit, I didn't know. Like, thank you for helping me. Or like, let me rephrase my strategy so that it actually works. Because I am happy to check an ego if it benefits the collective, right?
absolutely.
And that's one of the things that Ryan and I were discussing is with a strategy is to have food. So obviously we're talking about people that could be homeless or, you know, that don't have any dinner that night. We might have just fed their family by them coming to talk to us.
And
Absolutely.
Food usually brings people to the table. Doesn't necessarily build the trust, but it'll get them to the table.
Oh, it might be. I think
When is
It
dinner?
does. Yes. Right.
Don't
I'm working on
bring
it, Adam.
crappy
I'm working
food.
on it.
Well, we've talked about this too around like, I feel like meeting basic needs can definitely help build trust. Even if they're like baby steps, I still feel like baby steps are progress. That's something. What else do we have to cover today? I want to make sure that everyone got a chance to talk. Obviously, we don't have to like have every step in an action plan figured out today, but at least if we use that language or reach out after today, like that you all at least have more knowledge or maybe Phil
You
can
know, I'm
leave.
going to be in touch because I'm over here doing the thing.
Yeah, you're doing your best. You're doing a great job. And we're
Yes.
just here to help as much as we can. But we also want you to all find value in this. Like Adam said, it's been tough because we know people's time is valuable. It would be awesome if we had like 20 people here, like Adam said, and we could all have this conversation times like 5, you know, that really talk about trust.
So
And,
Sarah, have you reached out during the Emergency Needs Coalition? Because that meeting was super big this month for whatever
did.
reason.
I reached out and I asked if I could show up and I asked if we could send info and I didn't get a response. And
Oh,
so,
well, I will send you the link.
okay,
Because I
yeah,
talked to the lady that is a heart of it
Angie?
yesterday. Yes.
yeah.
She will be at tomorrow's meeting.
I was gonna
Okay,
say,
yeah.
I know Angie registered for tomorrow's meeting, so.
She's
Oh,
gonna be here
perfect.
tomorrow.
And I know that people
Um,
are busy, but to your point, Deborah, we love that, like the connections or like this group is meeting and this would be a great place, right, to connect or bring people in.
Right.
That's
And
exactly right.
that particular meeting tells us what we're seeing in the community as far as housing or employment or this or that. And we were able to talk within that. So maybe I know where you can go and get, you know, a housing voucher or a hotel thing, and we can share that with everybody. But then I don't think people realize what this affiliate group is doing.
You're
Right.
right. And we
Yeah.
are trying to get the word out. And also like, we would love it if you guys would help. Like, cause if you were like, hey, yeah, you may have gotten an email from Sarah that like is annoying maybe, right? But you're like, actually, this is what they're doing. And it actually, we had this great
In the email.
conversation.
Yeah. So I
I
think
had a whole conversation with Angie yesterday and then one with Region 2, the director of Region 2. And they were unaware of what they said. They were like, we've gotten the invites, but we didn't know what it
Angie
was.
has attended for sure, but
Yeah.
maybe she
So
forgot. That's okay.
She's gonna be here tomorrow and
yeah, she does know a couple. Angie has.
yeah.
Anyway, all that for naught. But yes, and I feel like we presented a quick overview of affinity groups at one of the Emergency Needs Coalition.
We
last
did.
minute. So
But we can refer people to you that we think would be not necessarily directly for the affinity group. I can talk about them, but for JCN in general. So then I can shame them mercilessly.
Oh, that's our goal,
hey,
actually.
public
Yeah.
shaming works too, right? Food and public shaming, that'll get people.
This is what happens, Adam. You bring people, and then while in the meeting, you can be like, I've been here for months and I've done this. And then, yeah, that's right. Exactly. Public shaming is how we do it. All success. That's true.
Okay, where have you been?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Let Adam do that part. He'll be the bad cop and you be the good cop.
Listen, I'm not mad about that situation.
Okay, so we have a slide about when, we actually talked a little bit about wins and barriers and kind of updates. Next meeting for this group, so this is specifically around building trust. That is going to be December 15th at 10. It's always the third Wednesday of the month. You can sign up right on our website that we were just perusing, or you can wait to get a hunting email that we typically send out, or our newsletter. So there's lots of opportunities, but if you go right to the website, you can sign up, and we can pop it on your calendar so that it reminds you. So December 15th at 10 is the next upcoming meeting. This is the group that we talked about a little bit. So when we're meeting tomorrow, this is another affinity group. It's looking a little different than our typical affinity groups, but this one is specifically looking at strategies that address inequities that have resulted or been magnified during COVID. We've had 4 meetings coming, or we've got 4 on the books. So last Wednesday, and then we've got this Thursday. So tomorrow at 11. And December 2nd and 16th. So that is an opportunity for anyone in any of our affinity groups or any of our affiliations, or really anyone in the community that's doing work or partners to join us and look at both designing a process around distributing the funding as well as having potential for receiving funding. It's kind of 2 parts that are going in parallel with each other. So we've got some folks that are action planning and working on making sure that they have the right things in place to potentially receive funding, but we are also looking to get some folks that will help us decide how that funding is distributed in the community, making sure that we have diverse perspectives in that process, and that folks that are closest to the problem or really experiencing those barriers are the ones deciding kind of where the funding goes. So tomorrow at 11, and then December 2nd and 16th. Again, all of these are on our website, so you have access to them. December 8th, Sarah and I hang out in a Zoom coffee world. Actually, she's in a coffee world right now in a coffee shop.
I am. That's true. Because there was a power outage issue and I had to do a quick plan B.
But that is just kind of a way to come and to chat about all things happening network, or ask questions or pick our brains or give us advice or whatever it might be. So then there's our Facebook. So this is just kind of wrapping up with our website, our Facebook page, and our newsletter, all things network.
And we'll send you links from today. So we'll send you an evaluation link. We like to hear what you think about the meetings and how we can best support you all. And we'll send you the link for the partner profiles that we talked about. So we'll send you the exact link where you can go on, and then also the link if you want to browse other pages, just knowing that, and our website has a lot of the easy links to, if you want to browse, play around. But
And when
we'll
it
set
talks
all
about
that.
requesting consultant or request consultation, or that's actually just Sarah and I. It sounds really formal, but it's hanging out with us and walking through things. I'm like, it's intimidating. Like I'd be like, ooh, do I want to actually? It is like that just kind of pops into our email and says, hey, can you help me with this action plan? And we're like, yep, we're there. So
And we do that often. So so for example, Phil, if you're like, oh, actually, I was looking for a little help with this thing. We help people all the time. We like it because then we also get to learn about your work. In the past couple of weeks, I've learned about the work that Deborah and Ryan are doing. And before I had no idea. And so if someone were to say, hey, do you know about any programs that are help? Like I would know. And so please don't ever feel free. Adam can vouch for us that we are nice people. We are. We're not.
That is true. I don't know what my stamp of approval holds, but yes, that's true.
We enjoy hearing about the work and happy to meet one-on-one if that is ever helpful for anyone. Yeah, anything else before we close? I just appreciate all of you coming today. It was great.
yeah, we appreciate it.
Learning about new things, and glad to have you here, Phil. I hope we see you again, and we'll make sure to send all the things to you and Angela as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank
All
you.
right.